I don't need to deal with that. It's fine. I can just do everything in my mind. Because I didn't even know how to feel my feelings because I've been suppressing them for so long. They just didn't come up anymore. I was in existential dread a lot. So the thoughts and the feelings, once you start learning to work with them, you really understand what it means when people say the answers are within. But you gotta actually listen to your feelings and listen to it in its entirety before you start coming up with solutions, okay? Take the stuff you know how to take and leave the ones you don't to the version of you that knows how to take them. Y'all, some of you may laugh at me, but don't be me. Don't sit in your bed back here just feeling all your feels. And then comes the hard part. Acting on it.
Hi guys, welcome back. This is Saturn Returns. My name is Crystal, and here we talk about healing in ways that are easy to understand and digest. And this week we're going to be talking about what it means to feel your feelings and process your emotions. Because if you're anything like me, an analytical thinker with a lot of air in her chart, then this is not an easy thing to do. We've spent most of our lives intellectualizing our feelings to the point where they don't even rise to be felt anymore. And we're going to walk through that in this video too. We have to learn to trust ourselves so that they will rise. We're just going to dive right in today. So what it means to process your emotions is to listen to them, to give yourself the time and space to really dive into the depths of those feelings, to uncover what they're trying to tell you about your life, where something is not in alignment, where something is not true to the life that you want, where you're not being treated properly, where you need to remove yourself from a situation or a place. It's all indicators. They're an alarm system. And when you can start to look at your emotions this way, you can learn to use them as a tool rather than being afraid of them or running away from them. Because I feel like a lot of us don't truly understand that emotions are those tools along with the thoughts. And I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen the last video on what it means to be the observer, go back and watch that one because it is very important to this process. That will go you through all the steps that we're going to go through in this video with emotions, but you need to go check it out because it's a little bit more in depth than this one will be. We're going to be building on what we learned last week, so definitely go check that one out. But it's important to know that emotions are not the enemy. They're actually trying to work with us to signal that there's something in our lives that we don't like and that we need to change. The problem is most of us don't know how to deal with these things, or we learned very early on that emotions are not safe, whether that was our own from a very, very traumatic event or whether it was witnessing the volatile emotions of others. Somewhere along the line, we learned emotions are not safe. And because of that, we started suppressing them, not knowing or feeling equipped to actually handle them or even seeing the value in them like us analytical thinkers. Because I definitely went through part of this healing journey feeling like, I don't need to deal with that. It's fine. I can just do everything in my mind. And while the mindset shift is in the mind, you don't know what mindsets need to be changed if you're not feeling your feelings, okay? As much as people might want to bypass this, you really can't. And you have to learn to be a safe space for your emotions so that they will rise. And this can start with allowing yourself to feel the little annoyances during the day, because until we feel safe with small emotions, our big emotions are going to keep being suppressed and we're not going to feel strong enough, confident enough, or equipped enough to actually go in and dive down into those to really see what they're trying to tell us. And we truly do need to know. So this is going to start with, in the everyday annoyances of life, the little things that pop up, listening to them. What are they trying to tell you about your life? And then comes the hard part, acting on it. I know. But if we don't act on whatever our emotions are trying to tell us, they're going to keep popping up. It's an alarm system. So every time it runs into that same issue, it's going to pop up. I'm unhappy with this area of my life. I don't feel like my work is purposeful or meaningful. I don't like how I'm being treated in this relationship. Things like that are going to keep popping up. And it takes so much more energy to run them in the background because they're not going anywhere. And they will keep manifesting in your body, in your life, okay? They're not going anywhere. There's no bypassing this. It has to be done, okay? And I know that when you don't know how to do it, that sucks. It does. I know. I was there, but I have learned to be a safe space for my emotions where they now pop up very easily. I feel confident. I trust myself with my emotions. And I locked those babies down at 8 years old. So it's it's been a rough existence of not being connected with my emotions and dissociating or intellectualizing them instead. Okay, so I understand. I get it. Okay, and it's okay if this process takes you some time. I had to trust myself with the intellectual part of healing before I would ever allow myself into these emotions. So it was a long bit of doing what we discussed in the last video for the observer before I even felt safe enough to do the emotional work. You have to build up that confidence in yourself that you can do this, that you can be a safe space for your thoughts, your emotions, all of these things. Otherwise, you're not going to trust yourself enough to let you in. If you are still the space that traumatized you, if you are reflecting the people who traumatized you internally on yourself, you don't feel safe enough to feel your emotions because you may judge them, or you may fear that you're going to be overwhelmed or overtaken by them or become unsafe in your emotions because of what you were taught about emotions and what you observed when you observed the emotions of others as well. And it's okay if during this process, the first reprogramming you do in this area is to change how you look at emotions. Maybe you're too scared to let them rise yet. That's okay. Each time they try, you reprogram that. These are emotions or tools. They are safe for me. I am a safe space for these emotions. I am not scared of the emotions. I am not the same person I was when I was scared of emotions. I am stronger, more confident now, more able to follow through and act on them in a healthy way. Okay, in a healthy way. And so you may have to do that part of the process first in order to feel safe to feel them. Okay, and that's okay. And so once we reprogram how we see emotions, we start to really truly understand how they are helping us. They are secret messengers into that subconscious programming. And remember, once the brain can identify something, it brings you to the present when it sees it. It flags it. It says, hey, this is here now. We can do something about it right now. And as we start to act on these emotions too, the small ways at first, okay, we start to realize that we can flow with them and we can gain a more authentic life. And you know what this does? This gives your subconscious programming the evidence with the positive emotions that you feel from acting on them, that you're safe for your emotions. You can provide another way to do something that is different from your old programming, and that you can have the life you want. You're giving it the proof, you're giving it the evidence, because remember, the brain is heavily evidence-based. So every time you do get the evidence that emotions are good, emotions are alerts, emotions are safe, emotions are healthy, you have to give the subconscious that proof. Be like, see, look at what this did for us. Because the brain's evidence-based and it needs that positive evidence to support your emotional healing journey. And I can speak from experience that emotions are only unsafe when they're not dealt with. That's when they become dangerous. They become dangerous to your health. A lot of health stuff stems from stress and unprocessed emotions living within the body, just waiting to be heard. Okay. And so this manifests in the body, and it keeps you in environments and situations that don't align with you, don't make you happy, and keep you miserable. So this is why emotional suppression is actually more dangerous for you than expressing these emotions, than processing these emotions. And I want to remind you and your subconscious that when you started suppressing these emotions, you didn't have the tools to handle them. It was the safest thing for you to do in that time, and that is okay. But you are now learning from this channel, and probably other resources as well, if you're taking the positive content, the positive mindsets to help you reprogram, that you are gaining the tools to make it safe. And we have to give it the evidence by allowing ourselves to start feeling those little emotions throughout the day while we gain the confidence to dig deeper into the bigger ones. And this doesn't happen overnight, but even the small ones in your everyday that you can handle will give positive results for you. Okay, I have things where I'm supposed to be relaxing, right? But I'm a Capricorn rising, so that has not been an easy task for me. I'm learning home life balance with work right now and all of that, and it has been hard because I have this inclination to restrict myself, that every bit of time that I am doing something, I'm judging how I'm spending my time. And so I've been working to reprogram this for a little bit, and it's come a long way, and it happens pretty quickly, like I said in the last video. But the reality is that sometimes I've said, okay, I'm done. I've done everything I need to do. And right now I'm practicing. Once I have done everything that supports the life that I want, I am no longer obligated to do anything else. I do what I was planning to do, and I can now rest and relax. But I still struggle to do that. So, acting on the emotions for me lately has looked like sitting in my bed, but really, I kind of just want to lay down and chill. But my brain's like, lay down at this hour, girl? That is not productive. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway. And I immediately, as soon as I lay down, I get out a book or something and start reading, and I feel so good, so cozy, and I've taken care of everything I need to take care of, so why can't I do that? Okay, this is what some of this stuff can look like. It can look like I don't like eating a lot of sugar. These are just small examples because remember, we start small. I don't like to eat a lot of sugar. My mom passed away from diabetes, and that's a fear for me, or has been in the past since she passed away. And I will restrict myself and not allow myself to have like sweet treats and things like that. So it can look like, I'm craving a sweet treat, but instead of going, no, you don't need all that sugar, whatever, like, you're allowed to have that. You can just go get it. And then I get it and I'm happy. My inner child is happy. Okay. You can start with these little things. These are just little examples that are safe. They're small. They're not tackling deep core beliefs. They're just the little things in life where you can be a little bit more flexible with yourself and allow yourself to have a little bit more of a joyful existence. So these are just examples to show you how to start tackling the small things so you can gain the trust in yourself to dive into those deeper, more personal and wounded spaces. Now, I was extremely frustrated when I started this process because I didn't even know how to feel my feelings because I'd been suppressing them for so long. They just didn't come up anymore. And when they did come up, I didn't allow myself to feel them in their entirety. And this is very, very important that when you do start to feel your emotions, don't let it get to a certain depth that feels safe and then cut it off. Okay. Allow yourself to sink all the way in. This doesn't mean that we ruminate, we allow it to extrapolate meaning on our lives. No, we just allow ourselves to feel the depth of that emotion. Why? Because this becomes the motivating force that you need in order to change your life. If you don't allow yourself to feel just how bad this thing or action or circumstance is making you feel, you're not going to be motivated to change. Okay, this is why they say people reach rock bottom. Okay, you got to go all the way to the bottom of that feeling to really gain that motivation. So if you're struggling with the motivation to change your life, you may want to dive all the way down in there into that feeling. Okay, you probably won't be able to do this at first, and that is okay. Again, we have to build up the confidence and the courage and bravery in ourselves through these little steps to trust ourselves with our emotions enough to dive all the way in, and that's okay. But when you can, I want to make sure that you know, I definitely did this before where I got to a point and I'm like, okay, this is where I feel safe. I don't feel safe going any deeper. And I had to break through that threshold to really feel how these things were affecting my life and get the motivation I needed to change. I was in existential dread a lot. And like I said, the emotional work for me came a bit later in the process once I learned how to trust myself with my thoughts and reprogramming. But once I cleared out a lot of the mental clutter, my emotions became really loud and they had to be dealt with. And as I've cleared out a lot of that stuff and started flowing authentically into the life that I want and the one that I'm creating with my own authority through reprogramming, I am now in a mostly like content, happy place in my life, a positive place. So when there's an emotion, it's jarring. Like when there's a negative emotion, I am immediately brought to the present. It's like a blaring alarm because my emotional state now is pretty even. It's pretty content, relaxed, and I've been learning how to let go of where I've been restricting myself because boy, oh boy, was I restricting myself. So now when these emotions rise, I feel them immediately, and I'm immediately brought to the present to say, okay, what is this trying to tell me? Because that's kind of the great thing about as you heal this, it becomes easier to start identifying them because they're so jarring because you're more or less in equilibrium, and having a negative emotion is so out of place that it like snaps you into the present. You're like, okay, what's this trying to tell me? So that has become a really great part of the healing process for me because I've become way more present and way more aware as I've cleared out a lot of the mental and emotional clutter. Now, when either one of them comes in, I'm kind of just made aware of it because it's so different than what I'm normally doing. And you will reach this point too. So what does it actually mean to process your emotions? We feel them. Well, we stop, pause, realize we're feeling an emotion. We feel it. We get curious about it. We can label it just like in the last video. And then we just ask ourselves questions about it. What was I doing when this arose? What does this remind me of from my past? When have I felt this way in the past? What might this be telling me? Because I swear it is like the biggest, you really, with these two things, with the thoughts and the feelings, once you start learning to work with them, you really understand what it means when people say the answers are within. They are. They're in the emotions and they're in the thoughts. And we have to become a safe space that we trust to handle them before we can hear them. And that starts with the baby steps, like I talked about. And remember from the last video, you might have to sit with an emotion many times before you fully understand it, and that's okay. It just allows us to spot the pattern of when it's popping up. So if you don't know what caused the emotion, you didn't necessarily do anything that you feel like caused the emotion, and it's like existential or something, watch as it shows up and you'll start to see the pattern, which will be able to help you identify where it's coming from. And when you can understand something and you gain that clarity, that's where you start to be able to move forward and process it. So it's okay if at first you don't understand what the emotion's trying to tell you. This is a learning process. We had to learn our programming language in the last video, right? And now we have to learn our emotional language. What is it trying to tell us? And if you've been out of touch with this for a very long time, this is a learning process, and that is okay. Just know you're still taking those steps, you're still making progress, and that's all you can really do. Okay, so now we're going to dive into some examples of what the emotions might be telling you. And for this, I'm going to look down at my notes because I wrote down some examples specifically so that you can kind of learn to identify what an emotional language might sound like, what your feelings might be telling you, especially if you're completely inexperienced with it, like I was. Like I said, my emotions locked down when I was 8 years old. When my mom walked away, I had to watch her drive away and leave me and my brother while we were crying and begging her to stay. But again, my identity is not my trauma, but I understand what it's like. I dissociated, and from that moment on, I intellectualized everything as a way to avoid feeling, because I learned that night that emotions were not safe, on top of seeing my dad and his explosive emotions. So I understand if you've had them locked down for a very long time, it can take a while to get in touch with them. Just please don't get discouraged. You will get in touch with them, okay? So examples of what the emotion might be telling us are, I deserve to be treated better than this. I need boundaries and to remove myself from situations that do not honor who I am. And it's okay if it takes you time. Remember the spiral staircase? You'll slowly learn more about a situation before you may be able to completely remove yourself from it, and that's okay. I don't like this. This is not in alignment with what I want to be doing for my life. It doesn't light up my soul or make me feel fulfilled. And this doesn't mean go make some impulsive decision where you leave yourself with no income just because you're following your soul. I mean, if you do that, then you do that, and that's part of your life path, and that's how it's going to go. Don't be reckless with your emotions, okay? That doesn't teach you that it's safe, because if you're impulsive with them and reckless with them, that only reiterates to your subconscious programming that it's not safe for you to feel your emotions because you might act in a reckless way, okay? I am putting too many restrictions, expectations, and judgments on myself. My routines are too rigid or require more than is sustainable, and I just want to be free to explore without restraint and expectations. We have to allow ourselves to be like children with no expectations and just exploring, because sometimes that's where we learn the lesson. Who cares if it's not where you end up? At least you learned something. And in my personal belief, we're always learning things that help us on our soul evolution journey. Nothing is a waste of time, okay? So this is something that I've been working through, is rigidity, with my Capricorn rising and the Libra full moon coming up in my 10th house, and the Saturn, Neptune, all the planets in Aries in my 4th house, that axis of work, life, learning that there's more to life than work. So I've been working through rigid structures right now. And then number 4, I'm scared of failing. In the past, things haven't worked out for me, so now I feel like nothing will work out for me. Even though I so desperately want to move differently, I don't know how. And that's okay too. It's just good that you listen to that, and then you can start coming up with solutions, okay? But you got to actually listen to your feelings and listen to it in its entirety before you start coming up with solutions, okay? You do have to come up with the solutions and you do have to act on them, but you have to feel it first, okay? You got to feel it. You got to truly listen to it. And sometimes you're going to feel it multiple times because the feeling actually has multiple different things to say. You just weren't ready yet. So very, very important part of the process is feel it and listen to it before you start trying to fix the problems, okay? And here I want to clarify too that while you do need to act on your emotions, you need to take baby steps, especially if you're new to processing your emotions and you may have a lot of restrictive mentalities. If you try to leap, You may fall, reiterate to your programming that it's not safe, or that you can't do it, or that you fail, and you may not want to try again. You may get very discouraged. Okay, the nervous system too, remember we talked about this. The nervous system can only handle so much at a time. So as long as you are taking baby steps, okay, and allowing the cycles of the staircase to help illuminate more to you, that is okay, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Just because we can identify something, like we talked about the door, you start over here at the starting line, here's the door with the 50 locks, and you got to go on the quests to get the keys. Okay, something's brought to our attention first. We're not expected to know how to handle it. Okay, that's what the journey's for. Okay, so you can take whatever step puts you slightly outside of your comfort zone, but not in a whole nother continent. Okay, you got to take a baby step, gain your confidence. If something feels too incredibly hard for you, maybe dial it back. What little step can I take? Because leaping is for later, when you've got the confidence. That's where the leap of faith comes from. That's where me being in front of you right now comes from. But I didn't start with a leap. I tried leaping, and this is why I can tell you it doesn't work. I tried leaping many times, and it led to me on the spiral staircase many times because I fell down and I got discouraged. So baby steps are the way. What's one small step you can take towards acting on this emotion? Because that's going to help it start to dissolve, start to release, and not keep following you around as a background program that is running and taking up RAM and taking up your energy. It's not good, and it's also being stored in the body. Take the step you know how to take and leave the ones you don't to the version of you that knows how to take them, because they will take them. They will. That's how we sustain the changes that we're making in our life. I also want to point out that taking a step towards acting on emotion won't immediately make it go away in some cases. The brain wants evidence, it wants the proof. So that emotion's going to linger until it feels like it has enough proof and evidence to trust you, to allow itself to release this belief. So just because you've taken action on it doesn't necessarily mean it will immediately go away. Now, a lot of them they will, but some of these deep core beliefs, they're going to linger there, waiting to see if you're going to act on it, even with them lingering there. And another point of this is it may even get worse. Why? Because you are acting and moving in your life in a different way. And this is scary to the subconscious. As we've talked about, it's a defense mechanism. It keeps you constantly miserable because that is more safe than getting your hopes up or hoping for something, dreaming for something that never comes into fruition. Okay, so it's going to kick and scream while you're doing these things. You have to be aware and you have to be ready for that. Okay, so processing, alchemizing, and transmuting pain or emotions is a fancy way of saying we integrate their lessons and use the emotions to fuel action in your life that benefits you in some way. Okay, that is all it is. It can be convoluted concept to understand, but that is all it is. It is simply listening to your emotions and changing your life in the way that they're asking you to, so that it flows, so that you can be your own authority. You do not have to believe the things you were taught to believe. You are allowed to just change it. You're allowed to say, I'm the authority in my life. This mindset doesn't support success, and release it. It may not happen that easily, but it will happen if you continue all of these steps with being the observer and processing your emotions and coming to see them as tools together, okay? That you do not need to fear. You do not need to intellectualize, because intellectualizing is a form of avoidance and bypassing. You actually need to feel them. But I want to be clear, because I was told, oh, just feel your feelings, all of that. I literally, y'all, some of you may laugh at me, but I had to go through this the hard way and learn everything by myself so that you don't have to. So one day, very early in my journey, I was trying to just feel my feelings. I turned off all distractions. I sat in my bed and I felt my feelings. And it was terrible. Okay, but also it did nothing for me because I had no idea how to process them. I just felt really bad and no one really explained. This is why I want my channel to really walk you through these hard to understand and abstract concepts, because don't be me. Don't sit in your bed back here just feeling all your feels and feeling sad and diving into your trauma hoping it's going to give you some answer. It's not. Okay, especially when you don't know how to process them. If I had known how to process them, then sure, maybe feeling them would have been fine. But I had so many that I hadn't felt for so long that they were on top of each other and I couldn't hear them clearly. This is another thing that builds with the snowballing effect of healing. As you clear out emotions, because many of them are running in the background, overlapping each other, okay? It's hard to distinguish what's coming from where, okay? So as you start clearing these out of your system and acting authentically, the answers become a lot more clear. They flow in a lot better. So don't get discouraged if sometimes you're just feeling all the things and you have no idea why, okay? Because that's going to happen. Happened to me. I'm sure it happens with everyone because they're layered and there's just a lot that we haven't processed that we need to deal with. I want to elaborate a little bit more on the transmuting part of it. When you hear people say transmute the emotions, it's like if you find yourself in a limiting situation and you are angry or sad or depressed about it, use that emotion to channel the motivation, not to sit there and make it feel like that's all we're ever going to have. We can't have anything else. Don't allow it to extrapolate meaning, because it will tell you, I hate this. This is going to be life forever. It's never going to change. I'm never going to have the life I want. All of these things. Don't allow it to do that. Instead, use the depths of that emotion to fuel your action to change. They become the fuel we have when we feel drained, when we feel unable to move forward. Emotions can actually propel you forward, but you have to allow them to. And this comes from feeling those depths and understanding that just because they're telling you things about your life doesn't mean that they're accurate. Okay, that's the subconscious programming, and this is where emotions give you a sneak peek. They're the secret messenger, along with your thoughts, of the subconscious. This is how we gain access to those subconscious places. But we do not say, I feel, so I know, because that is not true at all. That is old programming, and we're getting rid of that. We can say, I feel, so I move. I feel, so I change. I feel, so I'm aware, but not I feel, so I know. Okay? Those two things should never be together, okay? So it will teach us things that we know, right? We will know things, but it's not, I allow my feeling to tell me about my life. I allow my feeling to tell me about my future. No, we're not doing that. That's what it's been doing your entire life, and that's what's been holding you back. We're not doing it anymore, okay? So feeling your feelings and processing your feelings is allow them to become guidance. Allow them to become guides, mentors. Allow them to fuel the change that you want to see in your life. And I want to point out something here too, because over the time that I've been doing this reprogramming in my mind and in my emotions, I have come to realize that what used to be a dark cage of my subconscious is now lit. It's illuminated, because every time we listen with our thoughts and our feelings, we're gaining insight into that subconscious place, and it becomes a place that we easily recognize as if it was a room with the lights on. Okay, and that is far less scary. Now, to begin with, we're slowly illuminating the room, okay? But then you start to realize, while there might be little things that become more clear to you over time, you know yourself, you know your language, you know your subconscious programming. And so you know when you're running into it. And it's not scary because you can just see it because it's illuminated already. So the more you do this, the more of that room, the more of that cage is illuminated to you, and it becomes a far less scary place to traverse and explore and learn. I want to say here too that just because we know this stuff now doesn't make it easy to apply. And it's applied in the moment that the things are happening. That's when healing takes place, when we are triggered, when we so desperately want to fall into a spiral because that's what feels natural to us, or we so desperately want to react a certain way to a situation or to a person, especially someone we may love or care about. That's where the healing takes place. And knowing all this stuff will not heal you. Knowing it gives you the tools, but you actually have to apply it, and it is not going to be easy, especially the first couple steps. I'll say it gets a lot easier after the first few steps, and you learn more about it each time that you're doing it too. You gain more clarity and more understanding, because remember, we're going through the cycles of the staircase. Go back and watch that video if you haven't already on the structures of healing. But you actually have to apply what I'm teaching you. Sitting here and watching the video and gaining the knowledge is so great. It is a great place to start. But you have to apply it if you want to see it change in your life. And if you want to gain the courage, the trust, and the evidence your brain needs to keep moving forward. So I believe that my audience will definitely do that, but it's something I really wanted to point out because you can have so much knowledge that you can tell other people, but unless you're applying it, the healing isn't actually happening, okay? And I know it's so hard. It is so ridiculously hard. I don't even really have a way to put into words how hard it can be to go up against the subconscious, but it is possible, and it's usually those first few steps that are the hardest, and then around the death phase, that's hard too, and we will have a video on that coming up soon. So to recap, you're feeling your feelings so that you can hear what they're trying to tell you and make the changes in your life so that you are living authentically, your life is flowing, and you have just more inner harmony going on, okay? The same reason why we are reprocessing our thoughts as well. This allows us to move more light, more peaceful, more authentically through life, going after the life we want, instead of allowing our old programming to tell us the life we deserve, okay? And I want to say how liberating and peaceful it is to just feel safe with your emotions, a part of you that has been suppressed for so long and doesn't deserve it because it needs to be nurtured and loved and supported, okay? And so once you start suppressing this part of yourself, you feel better about yourself. You feel more whole, more integrated, because life is more than thoughts for us analytical thinkers, and life is more than feelings for the feelers out there, okay? They work in tandem. They work together. And if we're rejecting a part of ourselves, that's painful, okay? It sends a signal that that part of us is not good, not accepted, not safe. And when we feel safe in those spaces, we feel more at ease, liberated, just generally we have more well-being. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next Monday at 4. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you have a video suggestion of something you're struggling with that you would like to see me talk about, either leave a comment below or put it in the Google form in the description. Thank you guys for being here. I have loved this journey, even though it's been reprogramming for me too, in both the thoughts and the feelings. This is what my soul wants to do. This is what I flow naturally, and I'm so excited to be sharing all this knowledge with you guys. Bye.